So you go to the apartment, you walk in, you see the situation, and you're probably thinking like, are you thinking like, what the hell am I doing? You said you had about an hour. You were waiting for the phone to ring. Like, what was going through your mind?
I think I was just ready to do it. Like, I watched some porno and got in the mood. I didn't do that much after that because I realized I didn't really need to get in the mood because it was just going to happen. But the first time I was like, okay, cool. I'm excited. I was turned on. Yeah.
This is the Curious Jord podcast. In each episode, I sit down and have an in-depth conversation with interesting people about their life experiences and/or area of expertise. This episode is a special one. I recorded this with my guest about 2 years ago. Shortly after I released it, however, she asked me if I could take it down out of fear that people may recognize who she was, which was kind of shitty but understandable given the nature of her work. However, she said if I could disguise her voice, she'd have no problem with me putting it up again. So after much tinkering with the audio, I have changed her voice to protect her identity even further. I have also removed any references to our place in space and time. So without further ado, here is the re-release of the episode, Confessions of an Escort.
Thanks for coming on. And how did you get into all this?
So it was last summer and I was working and I thought, how am I going to make a little bit more money so I can pay off my debts and, just enjoy life a little more? And it dawned on me out of nowhere, like, oh, I should just do that. So I knew that it was a huge undertaking and I did a lot of research into escorting. There's this really great blog written by a former escort. She just describes everything about it. So I read all that. I thought this seems like something I could do. And then I just looked up some agencies. So I'm doing all of this in my private browser window. Looked up some agencies and contacted them. I think I ended up getting probably the first one I applied for.
I love how sometimes as a joke, I'll say to my girlfriend oh, I wish I'd made more money. I should get a second job. And then obviously we're like, well, just go stand on the street corner or something, right? And then obviously that's not the approach that you took. You weren't desperate. You went about it in a calculated manner and did your research. And how is it? That's the typical idea of like a prostitute or like a hooker or something. You see someone standing on the street corner, but that's not the route that you took at all. It doesn't seem like that's who you are.
Right. I agree. I think that that's kind of an antiquated view of what an escort or a hooker is because I don't see that a lot. Maybe they exist and they're good people, but it feels like anybody with a computer is going to go the way that I went, which is a little bit more professional. It feels a little bit, I want to say, cleaner and safer.
So I didn't know there's actual agencies out there, but I guess if you look in the back of a paper or something, you see like certain escort agencies or escorts, right? So you contact the agency. How does that work? What was that phone call like?
Well, I didn't make a phone call until when I went to apply for my second agency job. So the first one was just a form I filled out. I had to send them some pictures, so that was awkward. Trying to take pictures of myself without showing my face in my room, without showing too much of my room. And yeah. And then, you get into all these body image issues too. Like, oh, I look weird like that. Oh, what's this? What's this over here? Am I good enough to do this? So I definitely had that cross my mind too. Like, am I attractive enough for this job? And then funnily enough, when I do it, some guys are like, you're too hot for this job. Like, isn't that the point? That we're attractive and you like that about us?
Yeah. So that's the requirement. You contact them and then they want to see some pictures. Is it like applying for a regular job and they want a resume or?
No resume. They do ask for your real name and your real birthday. You want to make sure that girls aren't too young But otherwise, then they have you in for an interview, and they told me to bring a bikini or something like that. But that never actually, I never got into it. They just kind of look at you and talk to you for a minute and ask you why you want to do it. And then from there, she was like, well, I'm actually a little bit too full. I have too many people. So here's a number of my friends. She's got a different thing. So I just did that. So actually, for my first job doing this escorting, I never met the person who I was working for. I never made any contact with them other than text messages and the occasional phone call. So that felt really weird and removed for me. And I ended up finding another place to work for where I actually met the owner. And yeah.
So escorting is not, we're using the word escorting. And then you can look, there's two sides of it. One is escorting. You're just going out with a client, maybe going to dinner, maybe offering companionship. But then there's the guise of escorting that prostitution or sex for money can fall underneath or lead to, right? So these escorting agencies, they're out in the open. They're perfectly legal. That's all above board stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So you're paying for people's time.
So anyone could contact one of these agencies. At what point in the discussion with these people, or does this ever occur, where there might be something happening under the veil of escorting?
What exactly do you mean?
Like the exchange of sex for money.
So it's taken for granted that that's going to happen. Yeah.
Let's just say that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that ever a discussion that you have with your employer? Or is it just understood that you're going to be exchanging time for money?
Yeah, that's right. So to keep everything legal, you never talk about the specifics with the employer. You can use words like, we do safe practices here, which is another way of saying that you use a condom for everything. So there's things like that are these sort of code words, or like, oh, are you a DFK, which is another way of saying, do you do deep French kissing? Like there's all these little code words for it, but you never actually say the two words sex for money.
I'm not in the industry, and it hurts me to say it almost. Like it feels bad coming out of my mouth.
I know, I don't like saying it.
Yeah.
And I don't even think of it like that, but I mean, when you get down to it, that's what I'm doing. But I don't think of myself as like somebody who exchanges sex for money.
No.
But I do.
It's like it's like, why does it sound bad to say it? Because it's so taboo, right?
I think that's it.
That's the only reason why.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it is a bad or a negative thing unless there's a victim involved in some way, right? If the woman or the male, whoever is whoring in quotes or like selling themselves, if they're the victim or if they're forced into the situation, then obviously that's horrendous. That shouldn't be happening. And that's probably why there's the taboo and the negativity surrounding the phrase sex for money. But if both parties are consenting and there's agreed upon rules and it's an arrangement, why should there be any sort of negative connotation around the phrase, right?
Yeah.
And that sort of seems like the environment that you're in. Everything is
Consensual.
Yeah.
It's above the board. It's like business, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, pay for everything else in your life, all the conveniences that you get. So what I feel like, it allows guys to know exactly what they're going in for, and it allows the women who are escorts to know exactly what they're there for, which takes out a lot of the, awkwardness of dating. I mean, when you're dating and let's say you go on a Tinder date and maybe you're there to make a connection with somebody and see what develops out of it, and the other person is just there to have sex, I feel like the communication isn't there and it's a hard topic to address with a stranger. So this allows for that to happen where both parties are consenting, they know what they're in for, and they're happy with the exchange, hopefully. I mean, there are some girls that get into it because they're addicted to drugs and whatever else, but I can't really speak to their experience because that's not my experience. So I do it like willingly, knowing what I'm about to do. Whereas if you go on a date with somebody and you don't want to have sex with them, but they do, you don't have that exchange. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said it best right at the beginning there. Both parties know what's about to go down. Whereas with a Tinder date or something is well, it's the typical like easing into it or like treading on ice. One person might have more expectations than the other, and you just kind of have to sort that out. That's just the whole nature of courting, right?
Yeah. And I heard another interesting thing, which is that, there's pretty, regular, attractive guys in their early 30s or whatever. And, they probably have no problem getting dates. But what they've said is that they don't pay us to come, they pay us to leave because they know that they can just enjoy time with somebody and not be expected to follow up with them.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, that's maybe not so nice.
Well, it keeps it in the business vein of things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you as a person providing a service, it's like, well, yeah, get in, get out, exchange of goods or fees or whatever, and then that's it. I follow this one guy on Instagram, David Cho. He's a famous like graffiti artist.
Oh yeah.
He's also famous for having he did a mural at Facebook first when Facebook started, and they were like, "Do you want us to pay you or do you want some shares?" And he took the shares and became like overnight millionaire because of the shares.
Right.
But he's I listened to him on a podcast before, and he said he doesn't have girlfriends because he's an artist and he needs like all of his time to dedicate to his art.
Mm-hmm.
So he said he just gets escorts. Like he'll be working on something in the middle of the night, but then he's like feeling distracted and stuff because he's like horny or whatever. So he'll just call someone, they come over, and he's like, as soon as we're done, she leaves. It's fantastic. I get back to business. Like
It sounds like the ideal arrangement for him.
Yeah. It's good for him. So like let's go back to your first outing, let's say. What was your first appointment like, or how does that all work?
Well, the first, like I told you that I never actually met these people. I never had contact with them. So the first time I did it, they gave me an address and an apartment number and buzz code. And this was for the in-call. So that means like there's in-call and out-call. So an in-call is when people come to you. And an out-call is when you go out and you go to somebody's hotel room or their house.
They come to your house?
No, they come to the address that I
okay.
that I was given. So they're usually like these nice condos. There's a lot there. Sometimes I'm walking around Yaletown and I see some attractive girls by themselves, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably just an escort on your break right now. But anyway, there's these these apartments. So I got the buzzer and everything. I go in there. There's a bed. There was very little else. It was pretty horrible.
Yeah.
And I just kind of sat there and waited. And then I think I had my first call within an hour. So this guy comes in and I was really nervous, but like ready to just do a good job. So yeah, he started kissing me right away. And actually a lot of escorts won't kiss, but I didn't know what to do. So I just kissed him back. And after that, I met two more guys that same day. And I think she had another one lined up, but I couldn't take any more. I was like, okay, that's enough for me. And then afterwards, I worked another maybe 5 or 6 days at this same place before I decided that I didn't like what I was doing there. But I still wanted to do the job. I just didn't want to be sitting in this gross apartment. It wasn't that gross. It just wasn't very nice either.
Yeah.
It felt really bare bones. Like it was very clear what we were there for.
So is the apartment owned by the agency?
Yeah. So I think most agencies will try and move apartments every couple of years so that neighbors don't get too suspicious.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you go to the apartment, you walk in, you see the situation, and you're probably thinking like, are you thinking like, what the hell am I doing? You said you had about an hour. You were waiting for the phone to ring. Like, what was going through your mind?
I think I was just ready to do it. Like, I watched some porno and got in the mood. I didn't do that much after that because I realized I didn't really need to get in the mood because it was just going to happen. But the first time I was like, okay, cool. I'm excited. You know, I was turned on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you expect that before going into it? Did you think it was like a turn on for you, like the situation itself?
Yeah. That was one of the reasons that I decided to do it, is that I actually like sex. I mean, I'm human, so I like sex. And I thought, well, I like sex. I like money. I like dressing up and looking nice. And I like meeting people and talking to them. So all of this kind of makes sense for me. It might not make sense for everybody, but it made sense for me. So I do like sex. I think I like it a little bit less now, but I don't mind it. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, how does that work? Do you have a boyfriend or anything?
No, I'm trying not to date anybody while I do this.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's fair to them because I don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah. Have you talked about it with anyone besides me right now?
Just the people that I've met through doing it.
Okay.
So I've met a lot of great girls, and we're all very open with each other. And for a little while, I had a guy who they're called regulars, but I want to call him a sugar daddy because he would call me and I'd come over and he loved to see me. So I described him as my sugar daddy, and I told a friend or two. And they were like, oh, how did you meet him? And I told them I met him at a party.
Ah, okay. Well, only you know.
Yeah.
Your little secret.
Yeah.
So, are you in like a category? Is there a category of things that you do or you specialize in, or is it just they show up and ask you what you're willing to do based on their thing? Like, I'm interested in like the nitty gritty of it. Like,
yeah, so there's different categorizations, and on a girl's profile, it'll sort of say what they're into without going into a lot of detail on that profile. Sometimes they go into a lot of detail, but anyways, so there's GFE, there's...
what's that?
Okay, so GFE is the girlfriend experience. If a guy asks me what I'm willing to do, sometimes I just describe it as anything you would do with a normal girlfriend.
Well, that could be
just a normal, regular, nice girlfriend.
Okay.
Nothing too crazy. And then there's PFE, I think. PSE, the porn star experience. So that's like GFE except without kissing.
Okay.
Because, you can kiss your girlfriend. You don't kiss porn stars. Because that's how they break it up.
Okay.
And then, I don't know, there's some other stuff. There's dirtier stuff, and I don't do any of that, so I don't really know a lot about it.
Okay, so you stick to the porn star and the girlfriend.
I'm like a pretty plain Jane sex worker.
Oh, okay.
Just regular sex, the regular ways.
Yeah.
And a little bit of other fun stuff, but nothing like, I don't let anybody put it in my butt.
Is there a price on that, or is that just a no go?
Not for me.
Okay.
Though, I'm glad you asked that, because there was one guy when I was working for the out-call agency, which I haven't really described, but it's the second one that I went to, where I actually met the owner and all that. So I was there, and we do safe practices, so you use a condom for everything, including blowjobs. Can I say blowjobs on here?
You can say whatever you want.
And so you use condoms for everything. And this guy, he was really coked out. And that would happen a lot. Like after you get to 2 a.m., everybody's just coked out. And those are the best people too, because you can't really do anything with them except hang out and listen to them talk and get paid for it. So I like those guys. But he was really coked out, and he really just wanted me not to use a condom. And I had no price for that. I was like, no, I'm just not going to do it. And so he's like, $50, $100, like, please, I'll tip you anything. And he was like, I'll give you $500. So he e-transferred me $500, and then I made him delete my, he was so high on coke, he wouldn't remember my name the next day. But I made him delete that, when you e-transfer somebody and you add their profile. So that happened. So I think the trick is if you just don't have a price for something and you're unwilling to do it until somebody says like, okay, here's $1,000.
Yeah, that's
Then you can reconsider.
yeah. That's right. The power of money, eh?
Yeah. Sometimes money turns me on. Sometimes when I'm having sex with somebody and I start thinking about money, I get really turned on.
I listened to a podcast with there was a sex worker on, and she called herself a humiliatrix. So that was her specialty. So basically, she dealt with like rich businessmen and stuff who just wanted to be humiliated because they're so powerful and they're like day to day they just want to be taken down, and like that's their turn on.
Mm-hmm.
So she would literally have guys that would give her like a credit card, and she would just go and like spend their money to like humiliate them, or they would call her, and then she would like act like a bitch on the phone and like pretend to ignore them and not care what they were saying. And this is what they were paying for. And she would just put the phone down and go like walk away and like leave them on the phone. And she's just making bank like off this.
Give me her number. I want to do what she's doing.
Yeah. It's all about that niche, you know?
Yeah, you can find niches. I haven't really found one because I'm
Not committed to doing this for the long term. But
Yeah.
if you really enjoy it,
and it gives you power. Like, you can do so much with it.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one thing. I'm going to Belize in a few weeks. I'm going on an all-expense-paid trip to Belize.
That's a sugar daddy?
Yeah, it's not even my sugar daddy. It's my friend's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are they going as well? Like,
Yeah.
It's a trip?
So he's paying for everything. He's paying for himself, 3 or 4 of his friends, and then
some girls.
okay.
Yeah.
Right on. That's
I
awesome.
heard about these kinds of things, but I didn't that they would actually happen to me. So it's kind of cool.
Damn. So let's rewind again. Let's go back to that first experience that you had. There was 3 clients that day.
Yeah, 3 clients in one day.
Did you like what were you feeling afterwards? Like the day was over. You said you called it quits after 3 that day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty big first day.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind?
Yeah, I wasn't happy at the end of that day. I met a friend for a birthday or a dinner or something like that, and just got really drunk that night and didn't know how to process what had happened. I still don't know how to process that first day, to be honest, but I remember not being very happy about it. And it kind of felt like something that I had to do because I have some debts that I just want to pay off from school and such, just regular life, but it's enough that it's stressful. So when I wanted to start making money, I was pretty serious about it. And so it felt kind of like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing, huh? So yeah, I want to get back to how that place just didn't work for me. And for some girls, that's fine, being in an apartment waiting for people to come have sex with you is fine, but I don't like that experience. I ended up really preferring the out-call experience, which is where you go to them and you go to their apartments or their hotels and you meet a lot more. I feel like I met a lot more interesting, good quality people doing that. And they host you. So you go to their house and they're hosting you. So they're making you drinks and making sure that you're comfortable. I think it's in human nature to make sure that like any guest you have wants you to feel good.
Yeah.
And they seem a little bit more respectful and a little bit less into freaky shit,
Okay.
which is nice because I'm not into that.
I wonder if they're less into the freaky stuff because you're on their territory, right? Like they're not willing to like pull any weird shit because of that you could come back with someone, right? And like find out where they live and expose them in a way.
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, because you're harboring their secrets too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of men. And one time, can I tell you a story?
Yes, please.
So it was a Saturday afternoon, and I didn't usually work Saturday afternoons. And this day I was so busy. I was just driving around. And normally we had drivers at this agency, but it was the daytime, so we didn't really have one. So I was just driving myself around in a rented car. And I got to one apartment, or this one house. It was a beautiful house. The guy was an architect or developer or whatever. And he pulls me upstairs really quickly. And then,
Physically pulls you?
yeah, in a polite way, but he's like, come on,
Okay.
run. And so we run upstairs, and then he kisses me, and he's like, oh, I couldn't do that in front of the camera. My wife would see it. So then he proceeds to tell me that his wife is in labor with their twins.
What the fuck?
And he just needed a quick release.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So there's a lot of married men that hire escorts.
Yeah.
It makes me sad.
What, like, wouldn't his wife just see a woman on the camera coming in? Like, what was his excuse for that?
Well, thankfully I dressed professionally, so I looked like I could have just been an interior designer or something like that. I
Yeah.
think that's what we went with.
Oh, okay.
So afterwards we went downstairs and I pointed at the table a couple times. I don't think that she's sitting there staring at the footage, but if she saw something, she wouldn't have seen anything.
Yeah.
Incriminating.
Man, that's too funny. His wife is in labor.
Yeah. Isn't
And
that
he's like-
horrible?
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I was trying to think of how it could not be horrible, but I mean, that's just rude. Right?
Yeah, so I've kind of decided that if I get married, and I hope to, that if my partner is on a business trip, I'll just have a don't ask, don't tell policy.
Yeah.
Because it seems like a lot of them will just do it when they're on business trips.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I heard the story, I think it was in the news like a few years ago. It was this coach, this like soccer coach in England, and he was caught coming out of like a brothel or like some situation where he was obviously like paying for sex.
Mm-hmm.
And they went, it was paparazzi, it was on the news, they were trying to like expose him and stuff. And then they went to his wife, and his wife was in another country, and they told his wife, and they were like, what do you think about this? Like, your husband's doing this and that. And she was like, he's a busy man, he's stressed, let him do what he has to do. Like, she totally just didn't give a shit, right?
She's a realist, I guess.
Yeah, because she was like, well, we all have our needs or whatever, and like, I'm not there to provide for him, so let him do his thing. Like,
That's funny. Have you heard about the story of the woman who had to jerk off a dolphin because she was studying it?
yeah.
So it's kind of like that. Like, we have these physical needs,
Yeah.
and you just gotta get rid of it. So for anybody that doesn't know,
I was just going to say.
oh, let me do the podcast.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm teasing. Yeah, this woman was researching dolphins, and she had one in her captivity that she was working with, and because it needs to eat and sleep and poop or whatever, I don't know what dolphins do. Do they poop?
Oh, they must.
Anyway, she had to jerk it off. Otherwise, it would get too pent up, and she couldn't study it the proper way.
Yeah. Yeah, like,
It's just like a physical need that you took care of.
yeah, from the story, from that same story, she was like living in this house that was like half flooded, from what I remember. So like she was living with the dolphin in a house, but it was half flooded so that the dolphin could swim around, I think. And the goal of the study was to research like interspecies communication. Like they wanted to see if they could talk.
Oh,
So like there was that was a whole part of why they were living together. But yeah, I remember that the jerking off aspect, because she was like he was just so frustrated and young, and I just had to do this to get out of the way. But then I think that it all got canceled because like they found the funding was cut because they found out she was jerking the dolphin off, right?
oh man.
But
It's like sex is such a taboo. I mean, that's pretty, it sounds extreme, but if you think of it as a biological need, what is so extreme about that?
well, like how is going and paying for sex any different than going and paying for a massage?
It's very similar.
It's very similar.
It's a release.
And a lot of people will mention how turned on they are after a massage. Right?
I've never heard that.
No. It's something that is rumor I heard somewhere.
Maybe they're going to those other massage parlors.
Well, if you were going to one of those, you wouldn't be leaving turned on because, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and like a lot of it is therapy. A lot of it is just talking and listening to these people, making them feel validated, making them feel attractive. Because some of them are just men that their wives don't find them attractive anymore. And they're just looking for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking for the physical release or whatever, but they're also looking for a connection with somebody that will just listen to them.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the job. One of my favorite clients that I've had, and I've only seen him once, but he was a psychiatrist. And by the end of this session, I was, being his psychiatrist.
Yeah.
It was special. We're still in contact, actually.
Yeah.
I gave him my email address.
How does it work for like timing and like payment and stuff? So like if you go in and you're talking to someone for like an hour, they're on the clock, right?
Yeah.
So is it, you get there and it's like, okay, it's 10. You say that when you walk in the door, or is it like prearranged that like I'm going to come there from like 10 to 12 or something?
I like to come in and gauge how they feel about me, because sometimes you get turned away because people are looking for different types and whatever. So that's happened where I've been turned away. But anyway, so I'll see how they feel about me once they've kind of invited me inside. I get comfortable and we chat for a bit, like a couple of minutes, not too long, before I'll ask for the financials or I'll see it on the table or whatever. So the smart ones just put it all out on the table so that it never has to get mentioned. And that's preferable.
Yeah.
But anyway, you just ask for the financials and you start the timer around then. A lot of girls will actually time it on their phone, but I have a pretty good sense of time. So it ends up being, I saw somebody last night, so I'll just tell you about that. So I was there, we had some wine, we talked for about 20 minutes, then we had sex for about 20 minutes, and then we talked for about 20 more minutes. And it's always that last 20 minutes that's really nice, because you're not as nervous about anything anymore. And like, I still get nervous, and I know that they do. Mm-hmm. A lot of clients are super nervous.
But that last 20-minute talk is always the best part.
Yeah.
You could be there chatting for 2 minutes, and then the guy's like, okay, let's go. Like, take off your clothes. And they're fun about it. They're not weird.
Yeah.
There's some weirdos out there, but there's weirdos everywhere.
What's the weirdest one you've had?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So this was at the in-call place. And this guy walked in. He kind of like tippy-toed into the bedroom. He just seemed off. Like there was something weird about him. He wouldn't take off his shoes at the door. And I'm big on taking my shoes off at the door. It's polite.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't take his shoes off. He came into the room. He was just anxietic, I think. And it turns out that he was a huge germaphobe. So he got me to get him 2 towels. Like he knew what he was doing. He got 2 towels. He put one on the floor. That's where he took his shoes, his pants, everything else off. He laid out 2 condoms on the little towel side by side and said that he was going to use both of them. Both of them.
Like at the same time?
At the same time.
Okay. Double bagging it.
Yeah. I've never heard that that's a good thing. And he's like, it is. I don't know, those people that say the friction breaks the condom. Screw those people. He was horrible. So he was so, oh man, he was awful. Okay. And he took off his shoes and then he kind of stepped onto the bed, but only onto a towel on the bed.
Yeah.
And then he was just kind of standing on the bed on his tippy toes. Like he really didn't want to touch anything.
Oh my God.
But then when it came to actually having sex with him, he was perfectly fine with all that dirty stuff, like bodies and liquids and all that. He didn't mind any of that.
That's so weird because, like, you'd think a typical germaphobe, that would be their worst nightmare, is like having sex with a stranger, right?
Especially a stranger who's already had sex that day.
Yeah.
So that guy didn't end up even really working out.
Like he didn't finish his business, or
I don't even think he started.
maybe it was the 2 bags. I don't know.
Yeah, he was distant, and I was distant from him because I really didn't like him.
Yeah.
So you actually do end up having a connection with a lot of the people to make it work.
Yeah, I guess there has to be that essential like human connection on some level, right?
Yeah. The worst is when you look at them and they're looking at you and they're looking into your eyes. I hate that.
During sex?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With strangers? No, thank you.
Yeah. That's a different level of connection. Do you ever get like guys that are just like obsessed with you and like you're like, Jesus, I wish this guy would go away, or like
no,
clingy?
I like it.
Yeah? You like that?
Yeah, it's nice. It's validating.
Yeah.
nobody that's become stalkerish. So they're usually the clingy or the obsessed ones are just like, wow. They just say wow a lot and go, wow, you're so beautiful, or wow, look at your eyes, or whatever.
Yeah.
They get really into the figure, but they're always very nice. I haven't had a lot of bad people.
What was that the weirdest one? Like the germaphobe guy?
Yeah, if I could really describe it, you would understand.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, there was another one that so this was the out call. So we go to him. He has to take out money. So the driver has to drive him to the Royal Bank down the street. This guy's got like long, greasy hair and a baggy leather jacket on. He lives it doesn't matter where he lives. So when I finally got into his apartment, it was horrendous. It smelled like cat pee, not subtly. It was just awful. I didn't even see a cat while I was there.
That's the worst thing.
Yeah, there was laundry everywhere. There was cobwebs in every corner. And he was so disgusting. Like, he hadn't showered. And a lot of them will shower for you because they're nice people. Yeah. They want to be presentable. He hadn't showered. He hadn't cleaned up or shaved or anything like that. So he's this guy that works so much at this print shop that he's been working like 14 hours a day for a month, and he decides that he wants to hire an escort to just sort of have a nice night to himself. But he was so high on coke and so disgusting. I asked him to go take a shower, and I've never really had to do that before. And he comes back and he is in like these jean shorts instead of boxers. Like, he didn't even have boxers or he did, but they were in just this pile of laundry that was almost half as high as me. And he, because of the coke, we never ended up having sex. Thank God. I mean, I kind of controlled that. He was talking a lot, and I just let him talk. I never told him, hey, you've only got 20 minutes left. Like, let's get to this.
Yeah, just let him go on and on.
Yeah. He was really upset and wanted me to stay.
Yeah.
I felt bad. I could have just left at the beginning, I guess, but by then I was just too far in it. We'd already driven him to the bank and all that. So like we'd spent so much of our time, and you feel kind of pressured by the agency. You don't want to waste their time and money and resources. So you can say no and you can leave a client without, having taken payment. But for the most part, you just deal with it.
Yeah. It seems like there's a mixture of just sad dudes, but then also like dudes who it's just like a chore that needs to be done for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're the same people too.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you had someone who was like so gross that you were like, I can't do it. But that guy sounds like a prime example.
Yeah. There is another one I'm just remembering. He was this kind of French guy with these really big lips that he just kept pointing out. And I speak French, so he would just be like, kiss my big lips. And he would say that to me in French. He was really gross. He had a dog, and there was dog fur everywhere. And I'm a little bit of a germaphobe too, so I don't want to sit on dog fur and get all my like clothes dirty. His apartment smelled pretty bad as well. Nothing was as bad as Cobweb Guy, but he was pretty gross. And then at one point, he thought that the dog had run out of his apartment. So he ran out completely naked. And he lives on a busy street. And he ran out of his apartment.
Yeah.
Totally naked, looking for his dog, which was still in the apartment with me. It was just in a different room.
Oh, geez. So like you haven't told any of your close friends or family about this?
Oh, no.
Do you think you ever will, or?
Maybe when it's all done.
Yeah. All wrapped up.
Yeah, I think I'll do it for 6 more months.
Is that like a strategic financial?
Yeah, it's a financial decision.
Yeah.
Though, something more than just the financials brings me back to it. Like, I've taken a couple breaks. I've only been doing it for about 6 or 7 months. And in that time, I've probably really only done it full time. Maybe 1 or 2 of those months. And the rest of the time is just like once a week or once every few weeks. There's something about it that I really like too.
Yeah. And you have a regular 9 to 5 job as well.
No, I work from home for
Okay.
myself.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So you can really move your schedule around.
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you stay so late that you can't wake up the next day for a job.
Yeah.
Some girls do it. I don't do it.
Have you ever had any scary, like, physical situations?
No, I'm really lucky.
What
Nothing.
about your coworkers?
Nobody that I've heard of. People are really quite respectful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That probably comes along with probably like the price range that you're in as well.
Yeah, it's about $300 an hour.
Oh, okay. And that's for the GFE or the P or PSE?
PSE. I think it's for anybody. And then there's extras as well, which you discuss with the client directly. So let's say that I was GFE, but I was okay with anal. Then I would tell them when I met them
Okay.
how much that would be.
Yeah.
If they inquired. Yeah.
If they inquired about anal.
Ask us today about anal.
Do you like vagina? You're going to love anal.
Oh man, I was talking to a marketer because I was thinking about going independent, and there's this guy who markets markets not to, but for escorts. So he gets your website set up and everything else.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, man, I've been on Wall Street. I've run a bunch of companies. I've done this. I've done that. But honestly, selling pussy is the easiest thing I've ever had to sell.
Yeah. I've been selling it since the dawn of time.
It's true.
What's the most you've ever made in a night?
About 2,500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've made, in one call, I think the most I made was 1,400. And that was just for these, like, 4 guys. It was after work. And my coworker, and I went out there. And they just threw money at us, literally.
Yeah.
Because we were dancing for them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. There's another time that I did a party like that, like a stag. And we had a new driver. And normally when you do a stag, the driver comes in or he checks in with you to see if you want him to come in. Because it feels a little bit more safe to have a guy there, making sure nobody's recording and, making sure that your money actually makes it into your purse and not back into somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
So, as soon as somebody tosses you money, it's yours. It's not theirs. And there was like 25 or 30 guys there of different age ranges. And the driver was so new. I didn't want him in there. I didn't trust him or feel comfortable with him. It's funny because I'm like, I don't want the driver seeing me naked, but
Yeah.
all these other people can. And they were throwing ones at me. So I had to go to the bank with $70 worth of $1 American bills.
Oh, okay.
And he asked me where I got them from.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
I lied and told him I accumulated them over time.
Okay. That's a good line. When you said they were throwing ones at you, I pictured loonies.
Oh, God, no. I would have walked out. Actually, one of them tried to film me, and I grabbed the phone out of his hand and deleted it and told him that was not okay. And then somebody else did it a few minutes later. And then I really made it known, like, I'm actually going to leave and I'm going to take all of this with me. And, so they stopped.
Yeah. I guess that must be an impulse that would be at a party or something like that, because that's just everybody's impulse now is to whip out the phone and start filming whatever is interesting, right?
Yeah. And it's certainly interesting if you haven't seen a naked girl in a while.
Yeah, I guess so, eh? Have you ever thought about taking the show on the road, like going to somewhere like up in Fort Mac or like, in Alberta or wherever?
Yeah, I have. I've kind of looked it up for some of those northern towns where there's just a lot of lonely men with a lot of money.
Yeah.
It seems like a good way to do it, but I haven't found any agencies there, and I don't think I'd want to be independent. So I like having the backing of an agency. It makes you feel a little bit safer and a little bit more like the clients are going to get screened, as well as they're going to behave well because they want to return.
Yeah.
If a client does something really messed up, the agency will just block him. So that's why we haven't had these situations where somebody's been in danger. But anyways, I thought about going to New York. They have really good rates there. I looked into New Orleans as well, but I didn't get any responses from the agencies.
Vancouver must be like pretty good rates comparatively compared to other cities. Everything else is more expensive here.
I think escorts aren't. I think escorts are cheaper.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. Like in New York, an escort's about $1,000 to $1,200 an hour.
Wow.
So 4 times as much plus the exchange rate.
That American cash.
You got to get that.
Yeah.
And I assume that in Fort Mac, it costs more because there's so few. That's
Yeah.
my assumption. I don't know, though.
Yeah, there's definitely... Then up in Fort Mac, too, those places, there's the whole predicament of guys being at camp for like 20 days, and then they get like 4 or 5 free days in the town to go off or whatever, right? And a lot of people party, and I know like servers and stuff up there make so much money, especially like women, because the guys will come down, they haven't seen a woman in like 20 days, and then they see a server who's being friendly to them. Oh my God, she's getting a $50 tip for sure.
Yeah.
Like I've seen that happen.
It
So I
seems financially viable to be up there.
Yeah. Market outlook is good. I wonder how they probably don't have that on Job Bank, eh? Like the
Indeed.com.
Does Indeed have it?
No. Make $1,000 a day guaranteed.
Yeah. Average income and all that stuff. Dang, man, that's crazy. It's cool. I wonder if there's ever going to be a time where it becomes more mainstream, like if it ever becomes a viable option that people can go and do, because like I don't have any moral issues with it. Like I was saying to you earlier and in the email exchange that we had, I think it should be like regulated. And if guys want to do it, or if girls want to do it, or if like people want to pay for it and there's a market, like why shouldn't it exist? So like regulate it so it's safe for everybody, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I think like the safest, like I know down in Vegas, I've seen some documentaries where they have like the brothels or whatever, or I guess it's Nevada, but like people can go, you go there and you like pick out a girl like you'd see in a movie or whatever, and you're in the room in the brothel. So it's like, it's super safe, right? Because they have people that work there, and then I'm sure they have buttons or bells or something they can ring if things get out of hand.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what's holding us back as a society from embracing it and regulating it, is just the moral like taboo that people have with it, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's that sort of slippery slope. If we allow sex work, then we're going to start having sex with animals or something.
Is that the next step?
I don't know, but I can imagine some righteous people saying something like that.
Yeah.
And I came from a Christian family, so I understand the taboo around sex. I didn't have a lot of sex before I did this. I mean, with my boyfriends, but like not anybody else really. So I understand being a bit of a prude. But at the same time, like you said, if other people want to do something, just because you're a prude or because you don't agree with it, it doesn't mean it's not okay for them as consenting adults. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever had any women?
No, I haven't. That'll happen, or sometimes it'll happen that a couple will want to hire one.
Oh, okay. Is that in your like profile that you don't do that, or is that just something that hasn't come up?
I think maybe a little bit of both. I think I was open to it when I was at the Outcall place, and so a couple hired 2 girls. So it was me and another girl, but she was a bit, she wasn't in great shape that night or in general. So they saw us at the elevator waiting. They were coming back from dinner. And I think that they knew it was us, but we didn't know if it was them or not. So I think they took a look at us and said no. So they went back, like they went upstairs. They didn't say anything to us. And they called the agency and said, yeah, we saw the girls. They're not what we had in mind.
Oh, okay.
I like how I just blamed the other girl for being unattractive enough. It could have been me, I'm sure.
You never know.
Yeah.
So do you think this has had any sort of psychological negative aspects to it? Like, do you think...
On me?
Yeah.
Just the secrecy. I think that holding a secret like that has been the hardest thing, because so many funny and interesting things happen every time I work that I want to share that. I love sharing with people, as you can probably tell.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been the hardest thing. But the actual work itself hasn't always, there's been nights where it's been tougher than others. And I sometimes wonder if it's just the nature of the hours, not the actual job. So you're working at 3 or 4 in the morning a few nights in a row. I think that would mess up anybody a little bit.
Yeah.
But psychologically, it's actually been more positive than negative for me.
Well, that's good. Yeah, the secret aspect of it, I wouldn't think about that angle of it.
Yeah, right? Like you expect me to say, yeah, I've traumatized all these guys. So much dick. But nope. It's the secrets.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking about it like that, but that was probably where my question was coming from. Like, oh, you poor soul, like, you know, you've been abused and sexually exploited, blah, blah, blah. But
I've been treated better doing this than I have in regular relationships.
yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Man, it's so interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
I think there's a stereotype and this image that you get. Like, oh, this poor hooker.
Yeah.
That hasn't been my experience.
Yeah. Like I had listened to a couple other podcasts with people similar to yourselves on them, so I was kind of already coming into it knowing that like you're the person, you're empowered by it, like you're the person who's in charge, like you're not being taken advantage of. So I kind of had that mild understanding, but I hope people who listen to this realize that it's you're not someone who's being taken advantage of. You're not a victim in any way, shape, or form. Like this is all your own choices and your own doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it seems like two completely different categories altogether when people bring up escorting or sex work, and then they also lump in human trafficking in like the same conversation. Like it's
that's a good
massive
point.
difference, right?
It's so different. I'm trying to think of an analogy for that. It's like
It's kind of
equating the pharmaceutical industry with, I don't know, Coke dealers or something.
Yeah, or I was thinking of just like
That's probably not a good analogy.
there's the umbrella of like drugs, right?
Yeah.
And like if you just say drugs, are you including heroin and weed in the same category? Because they're not, you know?
Yeah, they have very different effects on people's lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the industry?
Make sure that your life is stable, you know, like that you have a home to come to. Because if let's say your living situation is unstable, you might end up like one girl that I know who ended up having to live with a client. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, because then you're kind of stuck in it. It's harder to get out. So I would say that make sure that you have everything in place to get into it, and that you set goals for yourself for when you'll reconsider. So I had one at 3 months, and then I had one at 6 months, and then I almost stopped at 6 months, and I decided that I do have a few more financial goals and I do still enjoy it. So I'll do it a little bit longer. But I think you should know what you're doing it for and when you're going to get out. I also highly don't recommend doing drugs with clients. I think it can be more financially prosperous, honestly, because some clients just want somebody good looking to come over and do coke with, and you might end up staying there for like 8 or 9 hours. So I guess if that's what you want to do, then do it, but I wouldn't recommend it, because then you get really sucked into the lifestyle.
Yeah. Was there a Christmas party at the agency?
Yeah, there was actually.
What was that like?
It was really nice. Everybody got really dressed up and looked beautiful. I think it drew a lot of attention to us. Just a bunch of like attractive women wearing dresses and heels. Like, where are the guys? And we went to a nice steakhouse and ate there. And then I think they all went out after to like a male strip club, but I just went back to work, actually. I was like, well, tonight's the night to make money. Everybody's at the staff party. I'll go work for a bit.
Yeah. Do you get benefits and stuff? No.
No, but you walk home with a few $100s every night.
That's right.
So hopefully you can take care of your financials enough.
Yeah. That's incredible, you know? And it's something you hear about in movies or you see on TV, and you kind of don't think about it. But like at any given point during the day, you could be walking past a condo with just a mattress in it, or you could be walking past someone on their way to a job or to meet somebody. It kind of, the first podcast that I released was with a funeral director, and it was cool to like pick her brain and talk about all the aspects of funerals and like death and stuff, right? Because it's such a big part of our society, but no one talks about it that much. Like, who goes around all the time talking about death and dying and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I sat down with this funeral director for an hour, and one of the things that she told me that kind of surprised me was that they have like these unmarked white vans that they will transport the bodies in to crematoriums where they can be cremated and so on. But usually the crematorium is quite a ways from where the funeral home is. So at any given point during any day, there's dead people in white vans going down the highway or going down the streets. There's this whole undertone of this hidden layer of society taking place.
So the moral of the story is don't get into a white van.
Yeah, don't get into a white van.
That's interesting. I feel like, those kind of cube vans.
Yeah.
Is it those ones? I see a lot of them.
They're like they look like those Chevy like Astro vans or just like a white cargo van.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I see so many of those.
Yeah.
I'll never look at them the same.
No, I never do either. Like if I'm going down the highway and I'm right next to one, I'll say to my girlfriend, I'm like, I think we're like right next to a dead body. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, if you see a really pretty girl paying in cash, oh man, that's the other thing. So anytime anybody pays with cash, I just assume that they're sex workers now because I'm always paying with cash.
Yeah.
It throws people off when you pull out money. I try to keep it hidden.
Yeah. Well, that's like servers too. Like my girlfriend has a second job serving and she always has cash, right?
Yeah.
I call her my hoochie mama.
Aw. That's sweet.
Thanks. I was hanging out with this dude one time, and he was serving, and he worked at a high-end restaurant, and he had like wads of cash, and he would just go to cash it in like once a week. But every time he went to the bank, they were always so suspicious of where he got the money, and like, who cares, bank? Money's money,
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what I'm doing to get it.
Just don't go in with a bunch of ones from America.
That's good. So that was like an hour there. Is there anything else that you wanted to share? Like I'm sure I'm going to get out of here and be like, damn, why didn't I ask her that? Or
I've touched on a lot of the stories that I thought would be funny to tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to push that it can be really empowering. I think that my own self-worth and, feeling confident in myself has gone up a lot since I started. So yeah, you get this sad image of this poor girl, and that can be the case, but I'm pretty mentally stable. So I've, learned a lot from it, grown from it. There are girls that are underage that are trying to push it, and I feel bad for those ones. But overall, it's a great place. You should get into it. No, that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I sure did. It was an interesting one. I was a little nervous at first, at the beginning of the conversation, just because I didn't know what words to say or how to approach the topic. But after a while, once we got warmed up and got going, I feel like it was pretty good. Relaxed a little bit. So yeah, it was a good learning experience and also pretty awesome content. Thanks again to my guest for sharing her stories. If you want to find out more about the podcast or check out past episodes, you can go to curiousjord.com. Under episodes, you'll see the links like downloads, descriptions, all that jazz for previous released episodes. You can also find all the old stuff wherever you're downloading this one. Take care. Bye bye.